Welcome back to the show. As usual, I have the CEO of Safeguard with me, Doug Larson. But today we have a special guest. Captain John Walker's been with the Philadelphia Police Department for 35 years, marching toward his 36. Captain Walker's been in recruiting for 2 years. He has a very interesting approach to recruiting. It's a multi-pronged approach. We want to get into it because he's seen some success and it's getting better. Captain Walker, how are you doing today?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm doing well, and Happy New Year to everybody, and hopefully we have a great year, not only in the Philadelphia Police Department, but in law enforcement around the country.
Man, I really think we are. Obviously, you're in the heart of it, Captain. And, you came into recruiting as most captains do. Just it lands at your feet. You probably didn't know a whole lot about it because I had a similar situation. And you had to educate yourself and you had to kind of get your feet underneath you. But what were you walking into 2 years ago when you took over the unit as one of your responsibilities?
Yeah, so Travis, that's exactly right. I mean, 4 years of my career, I was in operations, so half in patrol, half in the investigative side. 2022, they asked me to start up a new shooting investigation group from the ground up, the first major city to do that, stand that up in a big city like this. As you all know, that's pretty difficult. And then after year one, where we saw 123% improvement in clearance rates and a 33% reduction in non-fatal shootings, they approached me and say, well, the problem is we can't create units like this if we don't have people. And we saw what you've done here, but we don't have people. So we need you in recruiting. We're short 1,200 people. And of course, the first thing, we all know what happens in law enforcement and what your feeling is when you're coming from a high function unit. And the first thing was like recruitment. What the hell do they do? That's not where I ever want to be in my career. And the conversation continued. Well, the problem is our processes, our systems don't seem to be functioning properly. And we need somebody with a clear mind, someone that doesn't have any experience there, to take a look at that. And because you're so good at process and systems, you have really no choice. You're going there.
Yeah, that's what you get for being successful, right? You get the next project.
So God rest his soul, Commissioner Timmy used to call it the curse of competency, right? The curse of competency
That's
will
right.
get you every time in your career.
Well, so you got there, and as you said, things were a little bit disarray. What was the first thing that you did? Because we'll get ahead to our audience. I mean, you're turning these ships around. It's a big ship, but you're turning it. But what was the first thing you saw when you got there? And what were some of your first moves?
So the first part, again, coming from the investigative side, it's the analytical portion, right? Look at the analysis. And what I did was looked at the 8 prior application drives that we held before my arrival. And I wanted to take a look at that data and see where are our fail points. Where is the problem? And quickly it came upon was process, right? Process and systems. The process was too long. The systems weren't good. And we just weren't communicating well with our candidates. It was as much as 108 days post application before there was any contact with the police department. And that in and of itself was problematic to me because in today's world, it's so competitive with the marketplace right now, with so many jobs out there, not only within law enforcement where you can move around, but also external. People often say, well, cops, but if you look at today's pay and salary, and I was discussing this with the executive team, we pay $29 an hour to put you in the academy. You can go work for Amazon for 25, 26 and have a flexible schedule. So it's a hard opportunity. It's a hard ask to get people to do this. But if your systems move better, you're doing well. The second part I looked at was our failure rate at orientation. So although we had 8 data sets would equal about 30,000 people, about 17,000 of those people never showed up for orientation post applying. So that number of people right there, to me, if we got 10% of those people, we meet our recruiting goal. So what is the problem in that process that's causing those people not to show up? Why are you applying? So now you got to look at your marketing end of it. And the third part I looked about was the branding, right? So it's no secret post 2020, law enforcement was defined for us, not by us. And if you can't see it, you don't want to be it. And I think what we were being seen as in 2020 were people that all we do is shoot people and we lock people up. And in my 35 years now, heading into 36, I've never discharged my gun, probably rarely unholstered my gun in a major city. And I was charged with investigating the shootings in the city for almost 16 years. And I handled over 5,200 of those shootings, dealing with some of the worst offenders in the city. So how do we look at the branding of policing, and how do we change what the people views us as? We've allowed the public to define us. So, of course, like every organization in America did, they throw the marketing money at you.
Yeah.
And the marketing money comes in, and understanding the industry, having friends who own marketing companies, you start thinking about it and say, okay, yeah, of course they'll take your money to market, but what are your conversion rates? What are you getting out of this? So you're spending all this money. What's your return on investment? And I'm a big person on ROI, but I call it return on intention. What do you intentionally do to get a return on that? And as they pushed this money and we started seeing what they were doing, because of my relationship with people in this city, in that industry, I'm getting phone calls from people saying, what are you doing putting pictures of people on buses? It's not going to get you anything. We want to help you. And obviously, you're one of the companies that reached out and talked to us about this problem of marketing, right? You're marketing, you're spending money, but are you getting results? Are you getting conversions? Are you getting people? And there was rarely a company that could do that, right? Where they tell you, here's your impressions.
Yeah.
You got 4 million impressions. Okay, well, I lost applications. I went from 250 to 300 applications down to 200 or 180 because of marketing. And the good thing about what happened with Safeguard Recruiting is using photographs and different marketing styles, you're able to look at that opportunity to see what's working and what's not working. One of the things that was glaring to me post marketing campaigns with big marketing companies that we were using, we had pictures of people in every one of our opportunities that we put out there. And the one picture that got the most hits when we went to Safeguard was just the simple shoulder patch,
Yeah.
with the patch lined up with people at the academy where someone took a picture. And I kind of started thinking about it because as we were doing our post application reviews with the marketing company, with the community, we were being criticized greatly about what the officers looked like, what the environment they were in looked like, and people saying that's not Philadelphia police officers, because I think we were trying too hard to put ourselves into a box of things that people were looking for, instead of just looking for a person with good interpersonal skills that wants to join this job and wants to be successful. We're taking photographs of different people to say, okay, you see this demographic, maybe you could be that person, instead of just going at it as we want good people with good interpersonal skills to come on this job with good ethics, good morals, and good values that want to help us, help them, but also help the community.
Yeah, and marketing companies do what marketing companies do. They market, and there's obviously a place for that. But what you notice, John, is the recruiting needs to be on top of that, and then you can see the data. You're a data guy, and you were able to, because with impressions, you have no idea. I mean, the numbers went down, but with an active digital recruiting campaign with the data, you can see the data flow and see what works, see what doesn't work, move your money around. You guys, you've done that quite a bit. You've adjusted that, and so that data is important because you need to, like you said, ROI, and I love return on intent. That's pretty incredible. And so you've layered this because you have the expectations you have for 2024, you surpass those expectations. And it's not just us. I mean, we're one piece of the pie. I think where your success comes from is you're layering different things, right? Communication piece, the digital recruiting piece, the marketing piece. You're bringing some officers back, right? I know you've lowered some residency requirements, so you've got this multi-layered piece that's really adding more numbers than really what I think was promised. And so, do you attribute it to that, just attacking this from different angles? Because when you're down, 1,200, I mean, that's equal to a 15-person department down 5. I mean, it's the same significance. You can't just do things you've always done. And what you went in, John, is you went in and you mixed it up and you looked at this from a more high level, because sometimes you have to be from the outside to look at it. Do you attribute it to the multi-faceted, approaching this from different angles on why you had that success in 24?
Yeah, Travis, that's exactly right. So part of that process was looking at every piece of it. So I call it a 360 review. So any unit I take over, any place I go, I don't do what I call a 360 review. Where do we start? Where's the start point? The start point, like most cities and most municipalities, is your city OHR that controls the process. So the application process in Philadelphia is no different. It's controlled by the central OHR, Office of Human Resources, which has hundreds of agencies they do applications for. So we're no big priority to them, right? We're one of 30,000 employees they're trying to hire. So I had to meet with their commissioner first and say, okay, here's what you guys do here. And let's go through this process step by step by step. Let's figure out where we can gain a little bit of time, a little bit of energy, and share a little bit of information so we become more successful. So starting out with the Division of OHR for the city, what I found is that they have what they call a contact list. So what we do now is so that we can meet with our candidates as quickly as possible is week one. So after 7 days of applying, Monday morning, I get what they call a contact list. That gives me the name, phone number, and the email address of the individual. We then communicate immediately on that day 7 to the candidate to give them, first of all, thanks for applying. And then it gives them a whole series of, we have practice sessions on this date and time. Here's a practice test for Nelson Denny, our written exam. Here's what the physical agility is going to be. And by the way, your orientation date is going to be this date. So now we're making everything more predictable now so that people know. We just had a candidate that came through, and it wasn't our delay, but again, working through what you're saying, process, from the time the person finished their physical agility, 12 days into an interview, within 5 days, they were doing their medical. 5 days after that, they were into their polygraph exam. So within 21 days, we were waiting a psychological review. Unfortunately, the fail point we have right now is we don't have enough doctors because our process is moving so fast. That's a good thing. That's a good thing to have right now.
Yeah.
So it took 35 days to get that person just a scheduling date for a psychological exam. So although we're at 56 days to hire now, the person is being hired at 56 days, which is unheard of. We were 2 years in some cases here before I arrived. This person really should have been done in 30. My goal was 35 days to hire. And again, that requires me to work closely with my detectives who do the background investigations, who kind of had a mindset of what they wanted to do when they wanted to do it. But we changed that process by having weekly meetings with our sergeants and lieutenants here to discuss what steps their process is in to push the detectives to start working. So every week we meet to discuss the applicant list to see if that candidate has moved forward. Why is the interview taking so long? Why is the scheduling taking so long? And we were able to identify each one of those fail points and start closing that gap, which we're getting feedback from some of the candidates now saying we're moving too fast, right? So that's a good problem to have. So yes, you're right. It's a multifaceted approach, but taking these approaches one by one and picking them apart one by one and then building it back up is what you have to do, including these opportunities for digital marketing campaigns that actually work. And yes, if there are some marketing companies that can help us, sure, we'll use them. But I think the biggest struggle we have with marketing companies is this industry was never really marketed before, right? People were always coming to us. When I came on, 10, 15,000 applicants applied. The applicants aren't coming like they used to come. So now you have to be more intentional in everything you do to get the candidates you want and need, but most importantly, ones who can get through the process to get to those right people.
Yeah, I think you identified it. And first off, you talked about communication. That we'll get to that, but I think you identified. I think for many years, I came on in '93. John, you're a few years before that, around that same time. We said we had recruiters, but we didn't recruit. Our recruiters are background investigators. They said because we didn't have to recruit. And so the shift, it's not just because of 2020. It's a different generation. The cops grant, we put 100,000 cops on the street in '94. Now they're all retiring. So everything kind of came together, and we have to shift our philosophy to more of a recruiting philosophy. And that can be sometimes tough, John. You came into your job and you had existing recruiters. How has it been kind of shifting their mindset to more active recruiting? Because that's a busy job. I would say a recruiter today in law enforcement is working a lot more than they did 30 years ago.
So Travis, you're right. The recruiter, again, my view as an aggressive person in a high functioning career, we looked at those as the 9-to-5ers, right? The 9-to-5 recruiters. What are you going to really do? Let's be for real. And it was funny when I took over here. The military recruits, okay, Well, the military has thousands of people who recruit, right? So open up a military type of station somewhere. Okay, well, how do we staff that, right? How do we staff 6 places in the city with people 24 hours a day? It's
Yeah, and they
impossible.
have multi-millions of dollars of budgets for TV, national TV ads.
Yep. And you should be calling these people every day. Okay, that's great. That sounds great. So my thought was, I have 5 recruiters in a major city police department, right? That's it. 5 recruiters. We have 6 patrol divisions. So I don't even have enough, one for each. So my thought is, how do we optimize this? And I think, and going back to Commissioner Timney when he was here, and he taught us this, and he said, everybody's a recruiter. I don't have a recruitment unit. Everybody's a recruiter. And I think departments have to understand that everybody needs to recruit people. And one of the first things I asked for when I got here and we finally got to the finish line was an incentive bonus to recruit, because giving our officers an incentive to recruit will change, I think, retention and recruitment. Because the problem I saw early on was, okay, Travis applies for the Philadelphia Police Department. In the Philadelphia, we have places like Wawa and Walmart where we have officers working reimbursable details. And you walk in the Wawa, you're happy you apply for the Philadelphia Police Department, and you see some cop who just finished 8 hours on patrol, but then they're going to work 8 hours second shift to make overtime. And you said, I just signed up for the police department. And they're going to say to you, why? Why would you do that? Because that's the mindset we were in after 2020.
Yeah.
And you're going to start doubting that and saying to myself, well, why would I join this police department? The cop just told me not to join. And now you create that problem. With an incentive bonus, I think as we move this out in the very near future, that's going to create a different dynamic. Because now when you walk in there and that officer, you say to that officer, I joined the Philadelphia Police Department. Here's my card. Can you just hit my QR code? Because now I'm getting money, and we made an option. We gave them either money or vacation days. So old people like myself, I would take vacation days over money, or I may take money over vacation days because I'm maxed out vacation.
Right.
The younger kids want, because our contract isn't as good under 10 years and is over 10 years, the younger kids want more time off. So with vacation days, they may accept 2 days vacation because they want to go on a ski trip for 2 days over a long weekend. So we gave options there, and we think that's going to give us an opportunity with 6,000 members. If we get 10% people to help us, we get 600 people a year. If we get 5%, we're at 300. And last year we did 369. So we can meet our demand pretty quickly in that environment.
Yeah, it's that extra layer, and we're going to talk about our referral program. I mean, people that watch the show have heard it, but we're going to get you hooked up on that because we can really put some gasoline on those officers, and you can track them when they send officers your way. It's incredible stuff, Captain. Doug, you're here listening, but obviously, now, Captain, we've known each other for about 1.5 years, and we've never told you this, but we actually test the process out to our new clients. So we sent an applicant through Philadelphia. When you first got there, and I've never told you this, I didn't want to upset you, they never heard anything back. But you doing the work and getting those processes sewed up is no doubt in my mind, just putting all that together. It's all those pieces working right is why it's done. And listen, I have to commend you, because not only did you have a significant issue you were dealing with, but you're at a very large department with a lot of moving parts, and that makes it even more difficult. So pretty incredible. Doug, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I'm impressed with what Captain Walker's done with it. It's always great to have a strong leadership and vision at the top to mold and guide a program down a new direction. It takes that at the top to get everybody else to help buy into it. And I know there's been some struggles implementing some things and changing a little bit of mindset, but seems like it's working out really well.
Yeah, Doug, you're right. And Travis, I mean, one of the things I did was testing other departments like you did, right? So everybody was talking about Atlanta PD and this online site they had. And so, of course, I applied. And I still haven't heard back, right, to this day.
Yeah.
But that, again, that's the investigative mind in me, right? Because I think some of the fail points in policing have always been the follow-up, right? So we all go out there and say we're doing something, but if you don't test it and don't know, and then challenge your people to say, wait a second. So I'm always testing here and doing things to see if the programs that I'm implementing and the ideas that I'm suggesting are actually working, right? So I'll do things and maybe put a fake applicant in there to see if that's working, right? Because you have to do that. And I think sometimes in law enforcement, we fall into this trap that if we say something that is going to be done, and we never take that opportunity to do that piece to see how the system's working. So, and how you, and again, it's not about embarrassing people. It's not about saying you're not doing your job. It's about making sure you're doing improvements. And as you improve process, you have to make sure the candidate is feeling that and that that's occurring. And you're never going to be perfect, right? You're a bureaucrat no matter how you look at it. And that's just the way it is. And you'll get a certain level of performance, but you can make substantial improvements in this process. Like I said, I never thought, we went with Guardian Alliance Technologies for our applicant tracking system. And just off their numbers, which doesn't include weekends, the first year was last year we used it, and we were 88.5 days from time to hire. And that includes weekend. Take those 12 days out for weekends. I mean, you're pretty good numbers based on that. But when you do a couple tests like we just did, and we saw this one candidate move through in that time frame, 56 days, that's pretty good from a large department. As Doug said, these large departments are hard. The incentive referral bonus took me almost under 2 years to get it done, right? To get through the civil service regs and get the OHR commissioner to agree and get the union to agree. It's a long process, but there's other shorter processes that I went at to get at, which was, these processes in between. Like, as I said, I talked to the OHR commissioner, getting those contact lists in to get that at least time down to 7 days. And then every meeting you go to, including one I went to the other day with a foundation who's looking to support us here. And the first thing the executive director said, well, how come you just can't hit a button and apply? Everywhere you go, you can walk in Home Depot and go apply. I said, well, unfortunately, I would love to say we can do that, but the technology isn't there and the civil service regs don't let us. So we're trying to do our best to work with. But one of the things I had asked our central OHR to do is look at a new software program, because the software program the city uses is really outdated. So we're almost close to bringing NeoGov on board as the overall application tracking system for the whole city, which will give us more flexibility, maybe to get to that level where we can get to 24/7. But then I think about it, the more I think about it, is having these open enough applications gives us an opportunity to do some digital marketing, to create some energy. So we have 5 scheduled application drives for this year, and it gives us time to take a step back, breathe, and then go back out there with a marketing campaign where you get in a, this is a major city where I think it's the 4th largest market in the country. So it's hard to get time with the local media. But if you were doing that every day, you wouldn't get it. But if you did it every other month, which is what we're intending with open applications, maybe that is a better process. But I don't know. We're going to test it both ways if NeoGov can do it for us. But staying open all the time, I think that works for smaller departments, because somebody may grow up. But in a big department where you have so many vacancies all the time, I think having that list grow for you and working off that list sometimes may make more sense for us. We're a small department. Again, I don't know. I'm going to test both to see if that works. But we are working towards technology improvements for that.
Yeah, it's incredible stuff, Captain Walker. We're looking forward to following the progress, and you're well on your way. So hopefully Philadelphia doesn't do what so many departments do, is they move you somewhere else real quick, right? Because you've now got a solid foundation, solid base. You may not have wanted to be there, but obviously it's got to be one of the most important aspects in Philadelphia and law enforcement today to make sure we're staffed up. So thank you so much for your efforts, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Travis. And again, I appreciate all your help and guidance and your understanding. I know we've, sometimes we're not the easiest people to deal with in big cities. And I say that all the time. I'm first and only generation law enforcement, and I have an MBA. So I'm always thinking business in mind. And I know you work with police departments across the country. And again, sometimes law enforcement isn't the easiest people to deal with, especially in this environment. And we appreciate your ideas and your suggestions, your thoughts, and your reviews going forward.
Well, we're excited about it, John. Thanks so much for being here. And if you've been watching and you've been listening, thanks for doing that. We'll see you next week.